what agentic AI is doing, it is basically reversing the calculus, which is you tell the agentic what is the outcome you're looking for, and it comes
Mhm.
up with the rules on its own. So how you, in RPA, you have multiple bots. Each bot is doing different things. They don't sleep, they don't eat, they don't get sick, they don't have vacation, and they're
Cool.
just kind of churning through, right? So similarly, in agentic AI, you have a crew of agents. Each one of them is performing a different role to get to the outcome. And now they are interacting with each other. They can be checking on each other's work. They can be checking at the outcome of one and saying, okay, now I need this in order to get to my outcome. So it's a completely different sort of a model of delivery. But the concept behind this is actually really process optimization.
Welcome back to another episode of Looking Forward.
I'm AJ.
And I'm Jen. Today we're discussing AI innovation and how organizations can actually use these tools in meaningful ways. To help us break it all down, we have a fantastic guest here with us, Omar Butt.
If you've ever wondered whether AI is just a solution searching for a problem, this one's for you.
Exactly. We'll explore how organizations can approach AI strategically instead of just chasing trends, and why AI's biggest impact might not be where you expect it. So let's get into it. Welcome, Omar.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you as our first guest.
I'm honored. I did not realize I was the first guest for the year.
Yes, you
Is
are.
it?
For the season.
For the season.
Thank you so much for joining us. You and I worked together previously and have since stayed in touch, I think just mostly via LinkedIn, but thought of you when we considered bringing guests on to discuss their experiences in AI and technology, innovation, all that fun stuff. Just given your background, thought you'd be an awesome person to bring on and share about what you've been up to, things you're seeing as the industry progresses. I would love to start by giving our listeners an overview of who you are and what you're up to.
Yeah, no, thanks. So, yeah, we worked together, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's been fun. And we were both in consulting at the time as well, and that continues to be the case. So right now, I do head the professional services for digital data application and automation at Central Logic. And prior to that, you and I were working at UI and having some fun there.
Mm.
As far as my later adult life is concerned, I have been in consulting, primarily focused on data and automation. And AI has been a part of it. A few years ago, it was more focused on machine learning, which is closer to data, versus AI, generative AI, which is like kind of more general and uh, automation and process focused. At least that's how I see it. And yeah, we live in wild times where there is like new innovations coming around every day, and it's kind of becoming a bit challenging, kind of staying up to date with all of this.
For
But
sure.
I think it's also kind of creating a lot of new opportunities, and that's where I'm looking to focus and grow more in the coming weeks, months, and years.
Something that I thought could kick us off was a quote that you mentioned in us last speaking, which was AI is a solution looking for a problem. I thought that could be a cool place for us to start because that really stuck with me. Could you explain what you meant by that and how it applies to agentic AI today?
A statement like that could be a career killer.
I thought it was
I
insightful.
But I'm glad you gave me the platform to clarify.
Okay.
What I really mean by that is when you're talking to folks in the technology sector and technology enthusiasts, they make it all about technology because they're excited about it. That's what keeps them going. But for the majority of the world who are not in technology, it's a very challenging concept to understand.
Mhm.
So the way I explain is, there are so many different tools and solutions for AI that do all sorts of different things, and then they're fantastic. When taken in isolation, they may have a great wow effect in that isolation, but how does it impact your business overall
Mhm.
is really what most of our customers are thinking about, right? So the way we actually look at it, understanding the business process and all the different bottlenecks in that process, all the different waste in the process, optimization of the process, and then using AI where you can remove those bottlenecks, how you can actually optimize the process. It is a much better fit in context of the business process optimization rather than an isolated tool by itself. So, for
Mhm.
example, if I have ChatGPT and I can create great content, lovely. Most of the people do that already. But does that have a material impact on the process efficiency in the overall business construct is a critical portion that's actually missing from the value proposition of AI.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how many large organizations, based on how, disconnected or different departments work in silos, are using the same tool but don't even know that they're using it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's probably organizations
Yeah,
could be doing things much more codependently or in ways that are actually optimizing the entire flow.
it's valid because if you think about a number of organizations signing up for different tools such as Copilot or getting like kind of professional subscriptions or Gemini, they are using it for in individual productivity gains. But I think the opportunity is much bigger than that. These are very strong tools. Opportunity is to actually step back and really look at what is the process. Let's say HR. What does the hire to retire process look like? In that hire to retire process, what are the areas which are really the bottlenecks in creating a more optimized and a more pleasurable experience for your talent, right?
Mhm.
If you look at it from that lens, the utilization of these tools is going to yield a completely different output versus giving them something to either create content or summarize content. It's great, but you may not have yielded those benefits and the ease that you would actually gain from looking at it more as a holistic perspective at a 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 foot level.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So, are you finding that in your consulting experience, organizations are taking the time to do that?
Organizations are still trying to really understand the value of this.
Mhm.
It's the talk of the town. I mean, everybody wants it.
Yeah,
Like it's
they should.
everywhere you go. It's everywhere. You
Yeah.
can't escape it. It's in your phone. It's in your laptop. It's in your tablet. It's everywhere, right? I think organizations, and that's where I think as consultants we bring real value
Mhm.
in helping them find what value can AI actually bring to their organization by looking at their value chain, looking at their front office, mid office, back office operations, and bringing them that perspective. Because if you're engaged with a customer who is very much kind of focused on their mandate is to improve analytics in an organization. I work with a lot of customers. Data analytics has been my primary focus most of my life.
Mhm.
Is to improve the self-service in their organization. It's not in their mandate to look at the entire process within the organization, right? They're very much focused on a particular target. They are engaging you as consultants in that area. Part of our commitment to our customers is to not only help them solve that one problem in isolation, but looking at the other operations and functions in the peripheries where the impact could be exponential.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of value seen in C-suite and higher level when you're taking it all in from that view as well. There's a
And
lot more value to
and
be had.
that's why that's exactly it. If you think of like top down and bottom up,
Mhm.
taking that top down approach is really important because that's identifying it's these are all the different steps in an operation and where are we seeing some of the challenges and how do we optimize. So for example, in case of the automation is all about understanding what problem you're trying to solve, which somebody is doing either manually or it's very much broken, and in that problem, you are looking at the process. You can look at the process. You can approach it one or two ways. One is you can look at the process and say, these are the things you can do manually. We are going to bring in, let's say, automation of like either an RPA or AI and kind of help you automate this particular portion where you do not have to look at the receipt and enter that manually. Rather, we'll do OCR and it's done. But it has given you the gain of saving the cost of time that some human is actually doing that work. Your real saving come even more when you're looking at the process and asking the question, do you actually even need this data input into the system? We are not only looking at the automation of a process by means of RPA or AI, which is a whole separate topic we'll get in there. But rather you're looking at the process as a whole. Do we look at re-engineering the process and eliminate any kind of waste in that process is actually where I think the real value is what customers are actually looking for. And those are the kind of consultants they're engaging who are bringing them a broader perspective than just solving isolated problems.
Do you find that it's a tough sell? I wonder how quickly they see the return. This is something we spoke about in another episode as well, is kind of like, how are you measuring the return on investment? Are you finding that it's hard to explain to people the value that they'll receive in advance of going through the whole process?
Having worked in data and analytics for most of my career, I think the value proposition of process automation with AI is an easier sell compared to convincing the customers of the value they will get from self-service or the dashboard. Because simple way to look at it is you have a current process which is costing with an investment of re-engineering of the process and now automating a significant portion. You have a capital investment of, let's say, Y. And now after changing that, you have a new economic model, which should be less than X. And at some point in future, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year, it has to recover the Y component as well. So I think making that case with process automation is so much easier. And I think some of the easiest sales and where I've found the most loyalty with my customers is actually that. Because if I can give them tangibles, if I can show them tangibles, this is what you're spending now, this is what you'll be spending in the future, this is your kind of cost to get there, and this is your ROI, it's a much easier conversation. And it's tangible, it can be measured, and continuously improved as a process improvement initiative ongoing.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this idea of agentic AI being the third iteration. Can you walk us through a bit of what that progression means and how you think agentic AI is kind of a new phase?
Yeah. So I think I cannot take credit for all of that. It came up with a conversation with my boss and some other customers, etc. Just a disclaimer. So if you look at the late history of automation, starting from like early 90s, business process management took the industry by storm, helped automate a lot of workflows very holistically. They were all focused on different aspects of the business, narrowly focused on those aspects. They gave businesses significant lift, and it was very much rule-based. Then came robotics process automation about 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. And that was really like the next generation of process automation. It would not only, it would take like some business rules in play, you could now also basically automate how mimic the human behavior on the screen so that it could actually help with that as well. But in both the cases, you had to explain machine the rules to get to an outcome. What agentic AI is doing, it is basically reversing the calculus, which is you tell the agentic the outcome you're looking for, and it comes up with the rules on its own. In RPA, you have multiple bots. Each bot is doing different things. They don't sleep, they don't eat, they don't get sick, they don't have vacation, and they're
Cool.
just kind of churning through, right? So similarly, in agentic AI, you have a crew of agents. Each one of them is performing a different role to get to the outcome that it has been advised to
Gotcha.
get to. And now they are interacting with each other. They can be checking on each other's work. They can be checking at the outcome of one and saying, okay, now I need this in order to get to my outcome. So it's a completely different model of delivery. But the concept behind this is actually really process optimization.
Optimization. It sounds like flipping it might be more valuable to more job functions.
So to more job functions, because if you're in case of RPA, if there are exceptions, you have to describe how to handle these exceptions. You can log them and have somebody else kind of come and check in and so on. In case of agentic AI, you don't have to identify what the exceptions are. The agentic AI has the smarts. It's actually better at mimicking human intelligence. So in case of RPA, you are mimicking human behavior on the screen to some degree. In case of agentic AI, you are mimicking human intelligence. When faced with certain circumstances, it will make an intelligent decision. Now, that doesn't mean you let the agents kind of go wild and start doing all sorts of things on its own. You need a human in the loop. Absolutely, one of the most important things, you need the human in the loop. And where the human comes in the loop without creating bottlenecks in the process is basically subjected to your process re-engineering and process optimization.
Are you seeing it takes a lot of iterating to get that right?
It's a thoughtful process. And just like most workflow and process-based exercises, you are designing something based on all the variables that and you're putting those together. But over time, the data drifts, the processes drift, more exceptions come because the businesses are not stagnant. They are like living organisms. They have shifts in them. So the process also has to be flexible enough to change. And it's not like we create a process once and forget about it. It's going to run till the end of time. And all of those things are requirements when you're designing the process. If any requirements are left out, when you're thinking of re-engineering the process, then those would have to be accommodated. It's a little bit of a journey, but I think like if you go by 85-15 rule, I think you can get good value from the first 85% of the optimized process before you start tweaking for the next 15%.
I guess with taking all of these processes apart and understanding where an agentic AI solution could come in and optimize it, are you finding that there's a lot more opportunities to optimize processes simply using an agent and perhaps replace a third-party vendor that you were using previously?
It could be a third-party vendor, a third-party software. It could be some human being sitting over there doing something from system A to system B. All of those are fair game in this process. Generally, whenever I talk to my teams, people eventually want to move off from doing the repetitive things over and over again. They have the need to grow. They have the need to expand their knowledge base, while also knowing that their livelihoods are secure. Right? Human intelligence is typically way superior than any other intelligence. So why not use it for where it matters more versus doing something repetitive?
Okay, well, maybe we could just go on to our ending looking forward question. So both of us agree that agentic AI is the next big disruptor, and that's on the brink of radically reshaping how we work and interact. How do you think organizations can position themselves to thrive in a future where intelligent systems play a more integral role?
I think the question maybe needs to be asked a little bit differently, which is not really, I have access to agentic AI or I know what it is and how can I use it the best? I think the question needs to be asked differently. Where am I feeling the most pain in the business? Where agentic AI, along with some of the other key business decisions along with the data that is required to make those decisions can actually improve the health of the business. And in that, an agentic AI, if it zoom in on agentic AI, it can play many different roles. It can play the role of kind of pulling the data from all the different systems that is required, where you don't want to make a lot of investment, writing long data transformation codes and ingestion routines. Agentic AI may be actually great, and it can make the determination. So if you're pulling the data from Salesforce to really look into where my product is most fitting with my customers and what do they currently have, agentic AI can actually help you make some of those determinations before giving you the data for your sales team to do some kind of self-service reporting or the forecast of where they need to focus in the future. So agentic AI can play the role of that sort of sales analyst in the beginning of the process while you are looking at the entire end-to-end sales process. There is definitely a role in each of those steps for agentic AI to play, for the data to play, and for the process to get better and faster so you can focus more on customers.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more question, just based on us building out Sunnyside and finding it quite difficult to find agentic AI agents that are being built for very specific use cases. Do you think you'll see that becoming more common, or do you think it will continue to be these bigger, more generic solutions that can do whatever you need them to do?
Oh, I don't have the crystal ball, but if I were to go based on how I understand it, I think it's going to be a lot more of a domain play where you have to understand the domain better than like just a general tool. So if you, and what I mean by domain is if you think of your key business functions, every business has similar functions: HR, finance, accounting, supply chain, etc. So every business has those functions. Now there are tools to help you functionally do some of those tasks. And there are AI tools which will help focus on that one particular stream. Now, you need the domain knowledge, i.e. the business knowledge,
True.
to marry with it to really make the best use of that tool. And on the flip side, there would be a lot more innovation on that side of the business who is not focusing on individual function, but they're really focusing on the entire life cycle of the business. For example, how does an insurance brokerage get their new customer and sign them up with the best insurance rate possible?
Yep.
Because there will be AI agents who will be focused on that. And now you are living in a world where AI agents are almost like your workforce from a business domain perspective and from your cross-function perspective, interacting with each other just as the HR officer and chief sales officer and their teams would be interacting.
Very interesting. Time will tell, but I don't think it'll take long.
I think this innovation is so exponential. It would be in front of us before we know it. And actually, we wouldn't even realize that it's already a few months old. Yeah. It's actually almost scary sometimes.
Well, thank you so much for all of your insights. I really appreciate your time and everything you had to say. And I think our listeners will as well.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
What a great conversation with Omar.
I love this take on agentic AI. It's not just automation, it's actually rethinking how work gets done. And let's be honest, the speed at which this thing is changing.
Totally. And if this conversation got you thinking, do not forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who needs to hear it.